good people, it's me, Janae, back again with another video about ferrets, but this time it's a sit down and talk video. Woo woo! So, today we're going to be talking about their body language, but before we get started, I just want to put out a little... Oh, sorry, I got the hiccups. Before we get started, I just want to put out a little disclaimer saying I'm not a veterinarian, I don't study ferrets for a living or anything. I just have 4, I know how my 4 are, I know what they do, and I know what it means. This video is essentially a, is this normal kind of video? So if you ever wonder that and you're like, is this a normal thing? Why are they doing this? This is kind of to like help explain from what I've experienced with my 4 ferrets. So, the first thing we're going to talk about is the obvious stuff, which is duking. So, duking is essentially their happy sound. That's what they make when they're very, very excited. I describe it as like a pigeon's cooing, but high-pitched and cuter. I'll probably like insert a clip of a ferret duking very loudly, or maybe a video of my ferrets duking. I've noticed it's really hard for me to capture them duking because as soon as I'm like, oh, they're super happy, I like go to grab my camera and they're done, you know? Or they do it really softly, like the baby, he dukes when he drinks water. It's pretty cute. But duking is essentially their happy sound. It's something they make when they're like just filled with all this happiness and they have to let it out somehow, so they just start duking. It's like, I don't want to say when they've reached their max, but it's like a high happiness. So an example of when a ferret might duke is like the first time you bring home a new ferret and they've been in a pet store or stuck in a shitty cage and they have all this space. They're probably gonna start duking because they're like, ah, this is great. And so what they'll probably do as well as duking is something that a lot of people call a war dance. And that's like the silly movements ferrets do that everyone's familiar with. The community calls it a war dance. And that just means they're very, very happy. It's easier to catch a ferret doing a war dance than it is to catch them duking because they're goofy and silly and fun and cute. Another thing that they do that's a sound that might not be a good sound is hissing. So when it comes to hissing, I always use my ferret Bimo as an example because he likes to make this, he hisses the most. He just goes, and when you think of an animal hissing, I always think of like a cat hissing, and that's like a fuck off, don't touch me, I don't like you kind of thing. But when ferrets do it, it doesn't necessarily mean that. So it always depends on the context. So if you're watching your ferrets and like Bimo, okay, I'm gonna use Bimo as an example because he hisses at weird times, which makes me believe it's not always a bad thing. Bimo is playing with Charlie, right? Charlie looks at Bimo and decides, I don't want to play anymore. He just walks away. So Bimo will go because he's annoyed because he wants attention. If I'm on my phone and not paying attention to Bimo, he'll go up to me and go and try and grab my phone. Bimo is just an attention whore, and for him, hissing is like a literally. It's a sigh. It's a dramatic sigh when Bimo does it. But for my other ferrets, like Opal for example, she hisses when she's like annoyed. So Bimo, baby, and baby boy have the most energy. Charlie has the least energy and Opal is somewhere in between. So a lot of times the boys will be hyped up and they're playing and they're running and they're having a good time and Opal is not in the mood. So they'll go jump on her and start playing and she'll like back off and look at them and go so that's her way of telling them, leave me alone, I don't want to play. So yeah, it can mean that. Another thing hissing can mean is that they're startled. So like an example, if I don't do this with my ferrets, but I know people who do, which is fine. Let's say your ferret is a free roaming ferret, right? So they're walking around, you left, ferret's just doing their thing, walking around, you come home. They don't hear you come home because they're too busy ferreting around doing their thing. And then you see them and you like go and you pick them up or you get close to them and they hear you and they like shuffle away and they go, that, it means you startled them. I've done that with my ferrets when they're drinking water or eating, that's usually when I get like a startled like and then they're like, oh. And I know they're not just mad at me because they don't like try and bite me or anything. Speaking of biting is another thing. It's not a mean thing. It doesn't mean they hate you. It doesn't mean they're mad at you. That's how ferrets play. They play by biting and using their little hands.
What are you doing? No getting out. No getting out. No getting out. Out, 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 out.
And if you're concerned about biting, all I suggest is giving them extra love and extra TLC and just dealing with it, because eventually their bite is going to go away. And what I mean by that is they're still going to bite and nibble, but they'll learn how to do it softer. That's exactly what happened with Opal. That's exactly what happened with BMO. That's exactly what's going to happen with Baby Boy. It's because Opal, we got her at Petco. Granted, Petco usually doesn't have a lot of ferrets, but that's still limited interaction she gets with humans. Therefore, when she's with a human, she doesn't know how to interact with them, so she chomps down. As we played with her every day and had her out for hours and gave her a lot of handling, she slowly stopped biting. The only time she'll bite you is when she's playing, and when she does that, it's not a hard bite. BMO, if you go like this in front of his face, he would like back up, and then he'd go and try and grab your hand and he'd chomp down on it, which hurt a little bit, but not too much. The more I handled him, he grew out of that. Like, he'll still bite, but it's to where you barely feel it. Charlie's never bitten me, so I'm not even gonna go there. Baby Boy bites the hardest. He could easily draw blood with how hard he bites, but I'm not gonna punish him for trying to play with me or anything. And that's something that's debatable between a lot of ferret owners. Some think they need to be punished when they bite. I personally believe they shouldn't because they're just playing. And like I said, they will literally grow out of it. It's like that with almost every animal. An example, when I had my hedgehog, he would curl up in a ball every time I interacted with him, and he'd try and bite me. But as I played with him daily, that slowly stopped happening. The only time he'd curl up in a ball is if someone made like a loud noise and startled him. You know, because they have bad vision. And it's also like that with reptiles, for example. Like the bearded dragons that Renato has. When he first got them, they always tried to bite him, and they always tried to run away from him. As he's handled them, they don't at all. They try and bite, it's usually an accident. Like if I was wearing like green nail polish and I moved my hand, like they think it's lettuce or something. Because they're silly. The same as goes with like Luna and so on and so forth. It's just accident. But a thing that has two meanings is them poofing their tail. Opal is my only ferret that does this, and what it means, it has two meanings. So I think I already talked about poofing their tails. No, I talked about hissing. Okay, sorry, it took me a minute. When they poof their tails, that means two things. It could mean that they are angry, or it could mean that they're exploring. So, an example is Opal. She's the only one who does this. If you put her in a new room, or I go to a friend's house and have her walk around, immediately her tail is poofed. You can still interact with her, pick her up, do everything, and she's furious. But it can also mean that they're angry. An example is with Baby Boy. Sorry, I keep calling him Baby Boy, he doesn't have a name yet. But with the new baby, he is slightly bigger than Opal, even though he's 4 months. And he bites really hard, and so on and so forth. He likes to play. Opal has been trying to dominate him to show that she's the boss, but he can kick her butt, right? So what happens is he'll start like dominating her kind of thing and start licking her ear, and she doesn't like that. And so she'll like escape, scooch backwards and go. And like her tail will be puffed and she'll hiss. So that's essentially her saying, I'm annoyed, I'm mad at you. But like I said, if she's out and about and she's just walking around in a new place, she'll also have her tail puffed. A lot of the things they do depends on context. I've noticed a lot. Ferrets are known to play very dirty and very aggressively. They like to grab the necks and drag them. They like to go for the ears and like try and shake their head with it. They play very rough and very aggressively, and it is 100% normal. One thing to remember is that their skin is literally thicker than human skin. So the bites that hurt us don't hurt them. Okay? So like the things that look really, really painful to us doesn't hurt them. But the way to tell if you need to break up a fight is essentially if there's, let's say you see them fighting and one of them like goes for the side and starts plucking out hair, you need to stop that. You need to break them up. If one of them is being dragged and then you see like a little line of poop come out because they just pooped themselves, they just like, they poop their pants. Like they're pretty terrified. So you need to stop that. And if there's blood, stop it immediately, period. So that's the rule. If there's no poop, no fur, no blood, it's fine. One thing I've noticed with my newer ferrets, like Bimo and Baby Boy, is they are very vocal when you first get them. Very vocal. So Baby Boy, for example, when he's playing with Opal, he screams. He just screams. And it's very loud, it's very high pitched, and it sounds like he's hurting. But he's not. How do I know he's not? I've watched them. So I've literally watched him run, Opal's behind him, and he screams. He's not being hurt, he is fine. He's not showing that he's afraid, he's not like cowered up, he's not backing away, he's playing with her the same way he played with those other ferrets at the pet store. He's totally fine. But one thing I like to say is if you feel like they're not fine and you feel like something's going on, or they're playing and they're both screaming and you feel like this is just too aggressive, you can separate them. There's no harm in doing this. Because at the end of the day, they are wild. They're not wild animals, but they are animals, and sometimes the animals snap. And if you want to prevent that, prevent it, you know, there's nothing wrong with it. But it doesn't make you any lesser than someone who doesn't. So yeah, if you feel like you need to separate your babies, separate them. Period. That's what I do with Opal and Baby Boy. Like, if he screams, like, really loud, I'm just like, okay, no! Even though I understand they're just playing, but I'm just like, calm it down. What else do I want to talk about? I think that's it. I did also record this video, but, like, I was too zoomed in on my face, so I re-recorded it. So if I missed anything, I'm just going to insert clips from that video, right? It's weird. Another thing I want to talk about is ear licking. So, ferrets are prone to getting mites. Ear mites, to be exact. So one thing that a ferret will do to another ferret if they're really close is they'll pin them down and they'll start licking the ferret's ear. So, it can mean, the ear licking can mean one or two things. It can mean that the ferret that's getting the ear licked, like they're saying, hey, I love you, I care about you, I want to make sure you're fine. And they're like licking the ears. It's kind of like a motherly thing, even though my boys do it. Or it can mean they're trying to show dominance. And you know they're trying to show dominance when they're like pinning them down and they lick the ear, and then right after they try and bite them somewhere. That's them showing dominance. I've seen it happen both ways with my new ferret. Bimo, he went and he started licking his ear. I was going to film it, but I was like, I don't want them to fight because they're in the cage. The cage is not a place for fighting in my house. Cage is a place for sleep. If you want to fight, I'll take y'all out. Y'all can duke it out, like, period. But I was watching because I was like, if y'all start, And right after he was done licking his ear, he snuggled up with him and went to sleep. I was like, okay, cute. But so that's what that means. But yeah, that's essentially, I want to say that's all the things my ferrets do. That's a ferret thing, because they do things that dogs do too. For an example, I buy my ferrets dog beds because they're spoiled. I mean, I don't know if you could see the cage or if it's in frame, but their cage is fucking huge. Like, for 4 ferrets, I could fit 6. Like, their cage is huge. Regardless, I could probably fit 8 actually. Anyway, sorry, off the point. One thing that they'll do in their dog beds is they'll go and they'll start digging, just like how dogs do. All that means is they're trying to get comfortable. It's as equivalent to you tossing and turning and fixing your blankets and fluffing out your pillows. That's all that means. They're just trying to get comfortable. They are kind of like cats in the aspect of they need to scratch different things because of their nails. So if you get them like a scratch pad, that'll be awesome. I have towels that I bunch up under the door because they can slip through, and their time to scratch is that. They'll scratch the towels, but once it's out of place, I pick them up and move them and say no, because I don't want them going under, because they always try and pop their head under, and I'm like, no. What else do they do that's like a normal animal? Another animal, I should say. A normal thing they do that other animals also do. One thing Opal does is, she doesn't do this because she doesn't trust me or anything, but she'll go to her food, pick one up, run to the other side of the room, and eat it, and then come back. I'm not exactly sure what that means, but I know it's a normal thing that she does. If I give her a treat, she'll eat it right by me, so I know she doesn't distrust me. She's just food shy, I guess. It's really cute. My dog Dylan does the same thing. He'll pick up some food, and then he'll walk up to you, and he'll go, it's the cutest thing. One thing I've noticed all of my babies do, so I mean Opal and Little Man, what they do is they're confused about how bowls of water work, because they're used to being in the pet store with like the like hamster bottle, the water bottle. And so what they do when they see a water bowl is they'll dig in it and they'll scratch in it. They do that with the food too. It's normal. I've seen dogs do it. I've seen a cat do it. Yeah, so that's essentially now. But yeah, other than that, you guys have a wonderful rest of your day, and thank you for watching. I hope to see you guys in the next video. All right, bye.